Hello everyone. I said that I would show you how to do the embellishments that I use in some of my paintings, specifically my flower paintings, but I use it in other paintings as well. And here are some of the embellishments that I've made, and I've transferred them onto this is freezer paper, but parchment paper will work too. I don't know about wax paper because I haven't used it. I really don't think you want to use wax because it might stop these from sticking to your the surface of your painting. So I wouldn't suggest it. But these are what I make, and the first step is to make a sheet of paint, of acrylic paint, with your theme in mind. And what I mean by that is, for these, I obviously went with green with a black swipe because I wanted it to look like plants. I did for coral, I did this green, and I did a pink and two different tones of pink. And so for this one I'm going to use this blue paint that it's, what was it, gosh, I'm trying to think, was it aquamarine? I think it was, but I'm not sure. One of my other videos tells you what this paint is. The video prior to this one will tell you what color this is. I think it's aquamarine. It's a dollar store paint, and they work beautifully for this and for doing flower pours because the paint's already thin, so you add a little bit of Floetrol is what I use, and it thins it perfectly. You don't have to add very much water. Excuse me. And so anyway, and it's really inexpensive, so that's nice. And this is, again, these paints I mixed up for my previous video. And you do want your paints to be fairly thin. This one's a little thicker than I really would like to have it. It is mound upon mound. It's actually staying though, and you don't want that. You want this, the tiny, tiny mound upon mound. See, it almost runs completely into the cup, but it does pause and kind of mound upon mound itself before it does that. And you don't want them thick because then you can't spread them and they don't thin out on your sheet. Now, this is a cookie sheet that it's strictly for painting and arts and crafts. It's an old cookie sheet that I obviously used to use, and then it just wasn't usable for food anymore, but I saved it because I never threw anything away. This, you can use vellum, you can use, oh gosh, what are they? Laminated sheets, but I like this better. And what these are is they are the dividers for office, dividers for files, and they come in a lot of different colors, but I got mine at the dollar store. I cut off the little tab, and yeah, that's what I use this for. It is for doing these and for stencil making. And then I put a little piece of parchment here, and you have to have it so that it isn't, it's quick release, because you're going to want to take this off and get rid of it as soon as you do your pour. So let's just go going, and I'll show you as we go along. I am going to put, this white paint has a little bit of satin enamel in it, and then I accidentally added 2 drops of silicone, and I've used it since then. I did a flower pour, and it turned out kind of cool because it had all these cells, but I didn't mean to add that much silicone, so you probably only want 1 drop. But I'm going to use this. I'm going to use this as my swipe. And I think I'm going to put a little bit on here and just lightly coat this with this so that my other paints react, because I really want a lot of small cells, because this sheet that I'm making up is to eventually turn into coral, and for a painting I'm doing. So this is the coral, and I want it to have those holes because coral has holes, so it's perfect. It does the design for me. Now you want to take into consideration, like when you pour your paint, well, let's just get started and I'll tell you as I'm going. I'm just going to put a little bit of this on this vellum, and then I'm going to spread it out. And again, this has my reactive agent in it. So when you tape this down, I don't know if you can see it, but I barely caught the corners of this. And you only want to barely catch the corners, or you're going to have a problem when you go to release the sheet of paint from this. You'll have problems with that tape. And what I do, if you pull the tape, it's going to pull the sheet with it, and you'll lose a lot of the sheet. So just barely catch the corners, and then after the fact, after it's dry and everything, then I just come along with scissors and just cut the tape. I pull it up, and then I trim the tape so that it's level all the way around. That made any kind of sense. So it's not sticking out. You don't want it to stick out at all. So don't pull it, cut it after the fact. After this needs to dry flat, and you need to make sure that your cookie sheet is perfectly level. That's really important. So I'm just, and you can already see like cells are already trying to create themselves. Well, they actually are creating themselves, so that's good. For this particular one, you wouldn't use silicone for all of them. Depends on the image or the cutout that you want. I hope I'm making myself clear. I know I sound like, to myself, I'm like, that's a little confusing. Anyway, you want to make sure that when you pour your paints on, you do it in whatever direction you're going to cut it. So for my coral, I'm going to probably be cutting, the coral's probably going to be like this way. So I don't want it cross-hatched. I want the little cells to be running up it like you would see in coral. So I'm going to pour the length of my sheet. But if you're going to cut something this way, you're going to want to pour your paint this way. I feel like I'm not making any sense, but you'll see. And this takes a few days because you have to let this dry. You don't want a whole lot of paint. You're just putting a little bit on there. And when you make butterflies and stuff, it's different, so you have to change your processes. But I'll do a video on that too. Okay, that should be plenty of paint. This is nice because it really doesn't require a ton of paint. Now I'm just going to, you can do it with a spatula or you can do it with your finger, but you don't want to mix it. You just kind of want to get your paint spread out. I usually do it with my hands, but I'm going to do it with this today. I'm just trying to spread it out and get it kind of even. And this isn't taped down. I just am going to push down on it when the time comes. So I'm just kind of dabbing this so that I can, yeah, it's mixing it. I don't want to mix it. doesn't look like I'm going to have a lot of luck doing it that way. So I guess I'll use my finger. I'm just going to dab it with my finger. I don't want this marbled, or mixed up, you know, blended, I guess is the word I'm looking for. But I do need to get that white paint underneath it covered. And that's, see, it's already activating it. The paint that I put on top, it's already making some cells. And for this particular one, I want those cells, so there, that's better. Okay, I've got a pretty even amount. All right, so now that I've got that kind of spread out a little bit, just going to rock it back and forth and side to side, just a little bit. I want this to level out. It needs to be nearly perfect. It really has to be level. So just kind of jostle it a little bit like you would do a cake and get that to settle down. Now, I do want a pattern. So I'm going to take this skewer and I'm going to just skewer it in the direction that I'm probably going to cut this. And this should help, again, to bring the paint that's underneath up so that it makes some cells for me. And don't worry if you don't see a bunch of cells right now, because you're probably not going to. And what I'm doing here is, if you think about coral, coral isn't all one color. And so I'm trying to keep with the grain of what the coral will be cut out into, but kind of not just have it all one color. You want it to, I don't know how to describe it. You don't want to mix it. You want it, I don't like an ombre effect, I guess is the best way to describe it. Okay, so that's what I've got going on now. And that's pretty good. Now, we are going to, and I'm going to do my swipe with a paper towel. And the reason is because, well, maybe I actually will do my swipe. I've cut this piece of vellum so that it fits perfectly. And this isn't the one I cut. Here we go. So that it is nearly the same size as my sheet underneath. It's not going to be perfect. If you use it like where it's perfect, it's going to get hung up on the sides. So now I'm going to take a little bit of my paint that has the reactive agents in it, and I'm going to pour just a little bit on the top. And because I really want, I find that when you swipe, this kind of stays at the top, and then it just kind of, it's not real even. So I'm going to put another little line right in the center. And I do mean a little line. You don't want a lot at all. And that's going to help it to be even. Alright, here we go. I'm going to place our vellum down. This is one of those sheets that you fuse together. And I'm going to drag this. Oops, I didn't mean to do that. I meant to drag it with this. Now I've put my finger on this freezer paper, and I'm going to come all the way over it. This is why I said you need to have a quick release. I'm going to release that. That seems to be rinsed off. And release this. I'm going to pick up my extra paint. You still have a little bit, but not a big blob at the end like you would have if you don't do this. And that is important for getting these back off of the cookie sheet, first of all. I'm getting it all over my hand. When I do this, I bring my garbage can here so I can just transfer it quickly. Okay, do you see why I used the white in the center too? Because it really, past this point, it really wasn't dragging the white at all. It was kind of gone. So, let me turn this light off. Maybe that'll help. You see what we've got? See all those beautiful cells, and they're small, most of them. And that's exactly what you want. And see how it kind of did the ombre effect? The colors are not just, they're not separated like they were when I poured them. They're still separate, but they're incorporated with one another and not like whipped into each other. I don't know how to describe that. You can see what I'm talking about. It dries 2 days, then take it off your cookie sheet and wait another day or two for it to completely dry. Then you can lay a stencil over it and take an X-Acto knife and cut out your pattern, or you can go to the next video that follows this one to see how I cut mine out. So please join me on the next video. Like, share, and subscribe, and I hope to see you on the next video. Bye-bye.